Oh my god! I can't hold it for that long. We're back.
Good job.
Thank you.
Aha.
We're back. It's Airborne Sealife time. It's time for nonsense because
we are
who doesn't love nonsense?
Back after mistakes were made. Hello again.
They're only mistakes if you acknowledge them.
Exactly, man. Well,
yep. No, never mind. No mistakes. There were no mistakes.
Anyway, as usual, welcome to Airborne Sealife. Hey,
there is no Warren Bussing. Say what?
So I'm Brendan Sloan, and I'm one of the hosts of the podcast.
He is. I'm Yusuf Rashid. I almost fucked up my own last name, and I am one of the other hosts of the podcast. And then there's that guy.
This fucking guy who likes to make mistakes.
Nah, look at him.
Nobody likes to make. There's no mistakes. No mistakes were made.
Yeah. Anyway, it's Airborne time, boys.
It is Airborne time.
We got news? We got any news, Brendan? What do we got?
Well, I definitely found, I think we all have a little stuff, if I'm not mistaken, to talk about, but I found one that particularly tickled my fancy. Cradle, a Filth track featuring Ed Sheeran is supposedly coming out later this year. And I had to stop and open that.
I don't know how that works as like a thing.
I am equally confused because those are not two tastes that you typically put in the same bagel, if you will.
Oh, I could go for a bagel right now.
Yeah, don't put whipped cream on it.
Yeah, just don't do that.
I want bagels.
So now. Ed Sheeran has been doing this thing for a little bit. I think he only did like one album of it, but he's been collaborating with artists that aren't necessarily in the same genre as him.
Oh, he succeeded here.
Well, yeah, apparently, because he did a track years ago that I remember being on the airwaves with Chris Stapleton and Bruno Mars, which I think it was like a very like rock, like hard rock kind of tune, which like very different from his whole thing, which cool. But like Cradle of Filth of all bands.
Hey, I mean it might end up being like that one Metallica album. That we don't talk about.
Yeah.
But I've seen a lot of hot takes recently of people being like, no, actually that was the best Metallica album, and I feel like we're rehabilitating a lot of historical errors that we should not be. But anyway, yeah, it's always cool to see people like going outside of their comfort zone, and if it sucks, we don't lose anything. So
I mean, they lose money for having made it, but that's
that's not my money, so it's not my problem. You see?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's still funny.
Yeah.
It is kind of cool though. Like it's one of those like you don't see that collaboration coming ever.
The thing is, there is no way this is not going to be entertaining in one way or another. So, win-win.
Let me thicken that pot a little bit, and I'll give a little more plot thickening context here. According to the article, it feels like
starch all over me.
Oh yeah, it feels like we've been talking about this fucking Cradle of Filth / Ed Sheeran collab forever, but it's only been a couple of years since news of such an odd pairing came out, with frontman Danny Filth sharing that he and pop artist have become good friends and that the new track features a blast beat, quote unquote. We've all been left wondering what just the hell they did in the studio back in 2022. This isn't a new piece of news. This has been around for a couple of years now.
Saying this song features a blast beat is like this sandwich has a vegetable in it.
This sandwich has bread.
It's so because you wouldn't have pegged those two to become friends. It'd be like if King Diamond and Little Richard became best friends.
Yeah, but I feel
Well,
like
I
there's
mean, people are friends regardless of what job they have.
I mean, that's
exactly.
also true. It's just they wouldn't run in the same circles, to my knowledge.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
You know,
music people tend to fight each other regardless of what they're
one of my favorite things I ever read up on was an article from years ago when then artistic director and conductor of the New York Philharmonic, and my favorite name to say ever, Jaap van Zweden, in his in an article with the New York Times, just after he got appointed director, they asked him, who would you want to work with the New York Phil? Like, who do you want to bring in as a guest soloist or whatever? Like, do you want to bring in, like a Hilary Hahn, like the famous violinist, a famous pianist, maybe, blah, blah, blah. And he said, no, but I really want the New York Phil to play with Bruno Mars. It just, you know what? If you got the mindset for those kind of collaborations, screw it, do it. Like Ed Sheeran's working with Cradle of Filth. Hey, you know what's next?
Yeah.
Behemoth.
Imagine.
I'd be down for that.
Look, especially for classical, that's a huge thing because classical has gotten such and I hate the term classical, but that's a conversation for a different time. It has such a reputation as like a snobby old people hobby that you need stuff like that and stuff like what you see a lot of ensembles doing, where they're playing in parks and playing in casual settings and playing
rather than like halls, all those fancy halls.
Which is, it's kind of a double-edged sword because you need grandma's millions to keep the symphony running because that shit's expensive. But that used to be popular. Well, popular. It wasn't. It depends on the era, but it used to be like it wasn't an old people thing back in the day.
You know what we need? Honestly, we need
little
another
opera glasses.
That too. Yeah, we need another band to do something like what Metallica did in the '90s with the S&M record.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say that I would like to see it done more like the Earthside stuff we looked at, where it's not just like, hey, we poured some violins over top of this thrash tune. It's like the orchestra is actually part of the composition, because you don't see that very often in metal.
What I think you need then are musicians in the modern sense who can tell the difference between just pouring violins over something and actually making it a composition.
Yeah.
Because I think, you see a lot of TikToks and stuff where people are like, if you add X, Y, and Z to it and you just happen to link it up, it's convenient, but you've discovered the magic of 4/4 timing. And it's not that imaginative.
One of the TikToks that was supposed to be really cool that made me just unreasonably upset was someone who was writing like a film score style orchestration over the top of Bleed.
I've seen that.
It's terrible.
I don't like it.
It's awful. Bleed works because it's like super focused. It's one thing and one thing only. And when you start pouring stuff on top, it gets less heavy when you add more stuff, which is a lesson I wish people would learn.
I think a big problem stems from a bunch of years ago. People were making like orchestral covers of metal stuff. They're like, yeah, this can be orchestral. No, you fucking dimwits.
Yeah, that's
put
like
it together.
The people who were like, hey, all the YouTubers were like, hey, derp, let's do metal without the distortion.
Yeah, and
that's like, that's an original idea.
Yeah, and here at the end of the day, like, I get what that guy was trying to go for with the whole like writing an orchestra, especially for Bleed. But like,
no, it was impressive.
It was impressive, but
and
that's not.
If that person is listening, like, this is not about you. You did a cool job. It's just I wish people would learn that sometimes just pouring more stuff over a composition doesn't make it more like heavier or more impactful.
He's coming for you specifically.
And you know what the thing is? Like I've spoken to some of my students at the University of Toronto. Occasionally, when they'll ask me about like trying to make things sound heavier, they're like, oh, should I make these harmonies denser? Or should I do this? Or, maybe I should have like all these things going on at once. And I was like, all you need is a bass, some drums, just lay that groove down and just fucking hammer it. That's all.
And this is coming from, like, Yusuf, you have seen my music.
Yes.
this is coming from someone who does that nonsense. So.
Yeah. So it like that's all that's all it does to it. And like this whole idea of collaboration, going back to the main point, is it's awesome that Ed Sheeran of all people is working with Cradle of Filth. I don't know what the hell it's gonna sound like. I'm kind of excited to hear it though. We need more stuff like this. We need stuff like that. We need more hell. You know what? Like get a well-known metal band to work with like a jazz legend. Where's Herbie Hancock? Get him to work with like, I don't know, Iron Maiden.
I'd listen to that.
I would listen to that too.
I'll tie up one more clue into it. Like, I know one thing about the song. There is obviously not. There's like a video apparently on the Metal Sucks article where it has 10 questions. I guess they ask just Danny Filth, whether or not it's about the song. But there's a passage here that gives us a little insight. As for the track itself, Filth said people would be surprised by it, quote unquote, since both Cradle of Filth and Ed Sheeran like to like themselves while remaining cohesive. But I'm a little bummed we will not hear some metal vocals out of the Ginger's gob, but it is what it is. We'll just have to wait, which means that we're not going to hear some metal vocals directly out of Ed Sheeran. So that narrows down the composition a bit.
I mean, it could be one of those, though. It happens a lot where you'll have a band that does like mostly screaming or mostly cleans, and they'll get a guest on it, like the Architect, Higgins the Architect, where they got the guy from Leprous to do the screams in the middle there.
Who knows?
That kind of stuff is pretty common. But I guess Einar, of course.
It's a change.
Anyway,
it's a change of scenery at the end of the day, right? Like it's a nice change of scenery when you have clean vocals over something that is normally just a whole lot of. I'm gonna step away from my mic for 1 second so I can demonstrate this.
Well, sometimes, speaking of heavy, sometimes that does make things heavier, where the contrast is a big deal for me. That's why a lot of modern death metal doesn't sound that heavy, because it's just balls to the wall all the time with no breaks.
I mean, you don't need breaks if you're not a coward.
That too. I need bands to start collaborating with Vessel from Sleep Token. That's what I need.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
But yeah, like
anyway,
I'm sure like clean vocal stuff will be fun. It's again, like I said, it's a change of pace. Like it's something different. And I know a lot of people are like, I don't like different. Yeah, okay, well, this isn't specifically for you. Go.
Remember that podcast you and I did, Yusuf, years ago, where we went through the history of metal, and every like 5 minutes, and it was like, and this is the thing that people say ruined metal.
Yep.
People, especially metalheads, don't like change.
No, they do not.
Grow up. Your favorite band from
this is why I keep saying that truly the defining era of what we know as hard rock and metal was in the late 1990s, thanks in part to noted band. That's right, Slipknot. The fuck were you talking about? Why is your head down? What, you thought I was going to talk about the greatest band of all time, Limp Bizkit? No.
No. Why would you do that?
Why would I ever do that?
I knew he couldn't help himself.
Speaking of Slipknot, though. Of Slipknot, I kind of want to. This isn't a piece of news that Brendan posted, but this is something I kind of want to talk about because it's interesting. So Slipknot, notably, a few months ago, fired their drummer Jay Weinberg, who I thought was going to be like lifetime with that band. Yeah, guy's an incredible player, really super sweet guy, right? But he was let go by the band, and they have an upcoming tour cycle coming up for like festivals and whatnot, and they haven't announced obviously who their new drummer is. And like Slipknot still does the whole thing where like they'll be in their masks. They try to keep it as anonymous as possible, right? There is a rumor going around because Slipknot just posted I think it was on their Instagram or it might have been their story, I can't remember, of a broken drumstick to sort of like hint like, oh, the new drummer's coming. And some people have recognized that drumstick is the signature model of Brazilian drummer Eloy Casagrande, formerly of Sepultura, who was just kicked out of Sepultura maybe a month ago.
That's
it's a good detective-y thing.
Yeah,
I like that. Do we know why he was kicked out of Sepultura? I'm actually the first time hearing of that.
Well, so he had left Sepultura. I don't think he was kicked out. I think he just like left on his own accord and didn't really notify the band that he was going to be leaving. So he left, and then ironically enough, my friend's brother, Grayson Recruitment, who's an incredible drummer, he's playing with Sepultura now. But yeah, Eloy just kind of got up and walked away from Sepultura, didn't really say much else, but obviously the band is very pissed that he just left them like that. And only maybe about a week or two after that happened, this comes around and everyone's like, okay, well, maybe Eloy Casagrande is the new drummer of Slipknot, which I think will be cool. Now, obviously, he'll still have to be in a mask, but like that'll be sick.
I'm not.
I mean, you're still in Slipknot, though.
It's weird.
Yeah, and people have known who Slipknot is for a very long time, so it doesn't really matter that they're wearing masks or not.
I know, but I think the mask thing is they just keep it.
Well, yeah, it's a stage thing.
Yeah, it's a stage thing.
But people will know who their drummer is when they have a drummer.
Oh yeah, that won't take long for people to like reveal. And the thing is, like, eventually Slipknot's going to reveal it, and if it is in fact Eloy, everyone's going to be like, okay, like we saw this coming. But sure, I always found it interesting though about the way a band will just let go of members, sort of like that, because in the last year Slipknot already fired 2 people. Jay Weinberg was one of them. I believe Clown was the other. So
I think you're right on that.
Yeah, it weirds me out a little bit, but like, and then you see the way musicians rotate around, like Mike Mangini and Dream Theater, right? That was a thing, and then he just got up and left because they announced that Mike Portnoy was coming back.
Yeah.
I
mean, it happens. People have lives outside of their careers. Stuff happens in bands that you don't really know about. It's like a lot of people look at, especially metal, because metal is such a
it's a taxing art form.
It also has a kind of mystique to it, so people don't really see what's going on behind the scenes as much. These people are just normal people who are doing a job, right?
Yeah.
So things happen. You leave your job sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah. Well, regardless of that, Slipknot, have fun, and if Eloy's your new drummer, hell yeah. Brandon, anything else we got before we get underway?
Nope. I think that's a good amount of news. Why don't we dive on into music?
Cool. All right, so, Manny, what are we talking about?
Today we are going back to Australia, where apparently all the good guitars
Oi. Anyway.
And what is Australia if not the New Jersey of Oceania?
I mean,
who calls it that?
I wasn't going to say
it. No. Listen to me. It was primarily settled by Scottish people, and they grow a lot of lavender.
Those are very oddly specific parallels.
New Jersey settled by Scots?
Yeah, there's a lot of Scots up here. They're like all the old manor houses are Scottish. Like Scottish style. It wasn't exclusively Scots, but yeah, a lot of them ended up here in the early days. But anyway, yeah. So we're.
I got to get something all the way over there. I feel like I got to reach for it. Just reaching.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So moving on from yes, we're going back to New Jersey. I mean Australia. We're looking at the new Northlane song, which happens to have the singer of Carnival on it.
Yeah, Mr. Ian Kenny is on the track.
Mr. Ian Kenny, which I was immediately excited about because I haven't heard much of Carnival in quite some time.
It's been a little bit, yeah. It's been a little bit of time. But do you want to go first, talking about things you enjoyed in this track?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that really jumped out at me, I feel like Carnival, Northlane has recently moved a little bit away from the gentcore thing that they were doing.
Yep.
And have sort of been positioning themselves into being like a successor to Nine Inch Nails and Trent Reznor, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can get where you're going with that.
I'm glad you said that because I'll let you go through your thing, but I'll go through my thoughts after. But it's very aligned with what you're thinking.
Well, that's the main thought. The first thing I thought of when I was listening to this song is like these people have listened to Trent Reznor at least once in their lives. But I think the song is super cool. It's very focused. It's not very long, and it's not very complicated, at least as far as I can tell. It's just a nice, tight, got some cool moments. Before we dive into like the pieces, I want to hear what you all have to say about it.
I
If I may.
can.
Oh,
Okay.
go ahead. Would
No,
you like to go
Brendan, you go.
first? Oh, okay. I love you, Yusuf. We're okay. We're good. Here we go. Manuel, I just want to comment because like you and I seem to have come from a very similar idea when we were listening to this. For me, when I was just listening, I listened to this a couple of times last night to really kind of cement this in my brain. Um,
Mhm.
For me, it really felt like it definitely came directly out of the mid to late 2000s. Like sometimes when I'm listening to like a band or like a song that kind of fits into that like post new metal kind of deal, I try to imagine it at the beginning of the first Underworld movie, and if it fits in there, like it's a spiritual successor. Like this was a very kind of like very crunchy, very compact, and very audibly complex, very layered, like almost like a
Layered,
Trisket.
yes, that's a good word for it.
It's like it's a very proggy Trisket for me.
Mhm.
And I was like, I was so on point. I was like, are we sure this is new? I got to go back in time a little bit here. And I looked, and it, just finding out that they started off as like not only like a metalcore band, but in 2009, it's like that. Yeah, okay, that's what it is.
Yeah.
There's a pedigree here to this, and
We're also about due for a wave of nostalgia for that early like 2000 stuff at this point,
so
because we're all adults
well,
now.
well, Manuel, should are you
Yes.
going on record in the podcast right now to predict the return of the Jenko jeans,
I'm not saying anything about fashion trends.
the trip
But if
pants?
no, yeah, if they do come back, I will claim to have predicted it retroactively.
Yusuf, back me up here. It sounds like he is Nostradamusing the return of both Trip Pants and the Jenko gene. What do we think? Do we
I
think
I looked away for all of a minute because I had to answer an email and check some production things while we were going through this. And all I could hear was Revenge of the Something and Jeans. And in my head, I go, the fuck are they talking about Star Wars for? We're supposed to be doing a metal podcast. And then when I actually started paying attention to what you two fucking weirdos were talking about, what the fuck are you talking about? Excuse me?
for those of you listening at home, you can eye roll his lack of paying attention all you'd like. I am making the state. I was making my statements on how this song was gave me a very nostalgic feel back
It
towards like
does,
the mid
yeah.
to late 2000s, and Manuel was stating that we are kind of overdue for a resurgence of nostalgia from that time period, and I'm putting him on record here for stating that he is retroactively predicting the return of not only the trip pants, but the return of the Jenko jeans.
Anyway, I will say this. I do understand that idea of nostalgia that you're talking about, and it's something I think about where I saw this on a video recently. I saw this on a TikTok. Someone talking about how nothing not a lot of music in this day and age could be looked at as nostalgic in 20 years time. Rather, a lot of artists are writing music that already feels nostalgic as if it was written in some time in the past. And to your point, Brendan, what you guys have been talking about, minus the pants thing, um, is that there is this like weird, not invoking of nostalgia, but there's this feeling within, especially in the chorus. There's some, I don't know what it is with the production of it, but it does feel very like nostalgic. It does feel like it was written. It just feels like a mid 2010s kind of track. like
It definitely is.
right before the height of the gent era. You know what I mean, Manny?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel that.
Yeah, because there's
It
moments like
yeah.
yeah, sorry, but there's moments where like in the verses, it's very like flowy, and to your point about Nine Inch Nails, like definitely can hear that as well. I think one of my favorite things is the end of the second verse where it gets into the pre-chorus, and there's that little kind of like mini breakdown thing they're doing before the chorus comes in,
Mhm.
where
The
it's
pre-choruses are so cool.
they are
They have
awesome.
that kind of recurring harmonic
Yeah,
that just sounds really really gross.
yeah. Which again, it's
Big fan of
very
that.
like it's very mid 2010s kind of idea.
Hmm.
And there's moments of this where not just the structure, but the way how do I put this? The way that the song sounds itself, like as a whole, like the big picture of it,
Hmm.
reminds me of the kind of production and like large scale feeling that was done in the choruses of what Sleep Token, The Summoning, those like big feel choruses where it's kind of
Yeah.
like it's in your like it's not in your face, but it's sort of like it surrounds you. You know what I mean? That's kind
Yeah.
of what I feel from this song.
That was like a classic move from all the 2000s metalcore too,
Yeah,
where you had
exactly. And that
the riff and then the chorus was just like, a bunch of 16th notes on some chords and they kind of just envelop you with some pretty vocals.
pretty much because they're not focused on being flashy. They're not focused on like chugging or like all these gent things a lot of people are doing. It's just really focusing on keeping everything like locking everything down and just letting it like envelop you and surround you, and it's almost like an experience at that point, like an
Mhm.
immersive experience.
I honestly feel like this song would not have seen an out of placement of some David Draymond styled like synthesized like a whole bunch of just like laying over the track, and it would have felt completely at home, man. I it
Yeah. Yeah.
I really really loved how old school the song felt to me. Like it's just there's just something about like when mental it really felt like I needed to go out and buy a trench coat and a pair of sunglasses from the dollar store and just embrace my inner edgy kid again. And it was so good.
I do feel that there's moments of this where like I think in the back half of the courses it has like like again going back to the whole 2000s metalcore, even not like metalcore, but there's like a weird new metal element to it, like Breaking
Mhm.
Benjamin esque. Like if you
Yeah.
listen to that like OG Breaking Benjamin stuff from like Phobia or the heck was the other album? I can't remember the album after
Uh,
that. But
the
anyway,
one. Yeah, I don't know.
point being, I can't remember the name off the top of my head. Point being,
It's the
like
one with the
that.
MRI like brain scan on the cover,
Yes,
right?
that one. I
Yeah.
can't remember the name of it, but like that era of Breaking Benjamin, like there's that feeling. It kind of invokes that as well. There's a lot in this song that really
Dear
harkens
Agony.
back. Dear Agony. There we go. Okay, it harkens back and sort of pays homage to everything that came before it, which I think is really really
Yeah.
cool.
Which like also that Breaking Benjamin stuff is very like they love Tool, which is in a way a bit of that proto gentcore in a way. I don't please Tool fans don't talk to me.
Oh God.
But no, but they've got that like the early stirrings of all those rhythmic concepts that ended up getting developed into the more genty stuff later on, and Northlane has been doing that gentcore stuff for like that. If you go back to Node, that's absolutely a gentcore album.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay, picture
So
this.
yeah.
Oh, go finish your thought. Finish your thought.
No, that's it. It's just I can see where those two things might kind of converge in the same place.
Like here's the convergence for me. It's both weirdly classic and familiar, but also equally experimental back in those parts of that decade where people were being experimental and they were
Mhm.
challenging like what really was metal at the time. Like it's both new and old at the same time, and it's a very surreal experience to like hear that in 2024. And I'm all about it. If we had more bands like that running around today, I would just be supremely happy, and I would be little spiking up my hair every day. Maybe some frosted tips. I don't know. I'm just here for it.
That's an
Yeah,
image.
no, that's a good. It's an image, but it's also a good
It's my image.
way of putting that.
I think one thing to Brennan's point, talking about like this mix of new and old, it's interesting because yeah, you get that, like, as we've talked about already, that whole 2000s 2010s metalcore kind of vibe with the rest of the song, and then there's that breakdown in the middle after the second chorus, boom, donk, 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 donk. And yeah, they've been doing the gencore thing for forever, but it's very, what they're doing here is very reminiscent to that of like the early, like the, I don't want to call them like gent pioneers per se, but like what Periphery was doing on the first Periphery record.
Yeah, I mean that was one of the foundational records in that
Yeah,
style.
exactly.
So
Right. But
yeah,
that whole, like, what I love too is with Northlane, at least with the song, is um that breakdown moment is, it's straightforward. Because I
Mhm.
think going to what we talked about earlier with the news, where like you throw too much on something and it doesn't work as well. I feel like a lot of bands do that with their breakdowns, where they have this super awesome rhythmic idea going on in their breakdown, but then they have, like, like these synths and everything else, or like there's a riff playing over it or something. And sometimes all you just want is just that is just
Yeah,
the
I
simplicity
mean,
of the thump.
again, you know me, I love my way overcomplicated breakdowns.
Yes, you do.
But sometimes the metalcore breakdowns are not complicated. They're usually just like machine gun 16th notes
I think that's what makes it enjoyable, though,
and a
is that,
splash.
yeah,
And sometimes you just that's mosh pit music, right? Sometimes you just want
exactly,
that.
right. No, I mean, it all
Uh,
can be mosh pit music. It's just that I think when bands start going a little too, they deviate away from the idea of the breakdown. And we talked about this with the Animals as Leaders episode too. You never want to deviate from the breakdown. The breakdown is the foundation of everything else that's going on, if there's
Yep.
anything else going on. And when you're playing this stuff live, like, the crowd wants to dance, the crowd wants to scream, the crowd wants to uh elbow someone,
mhm.
if you're
Let
into
me
that.
let me put out there, to your point. To your point, I wanna emphasize your point, Yusuf. I don't want to cut you off, but I have so many good stories about going to a metal show that revolves around injuries I got at the show. For me, I there's something that you're saying that just lends so much weight to it, that like part of the whole experience of metal, what gets people into metal partly, I think, is getting a good live experience. And you need music like that, because you're correct, a breakdown is fundamentally the anchor of some of this, where you just cannot walk away from it. I have
Mhm.
wonderful wonderful memories of like coming back with like, oh man, my elbow got all fucked up from the show, and it was great. And I would come in with like the ringing in my ears to work the next day, and it was fucking paradise. So you are correct. You, what you're saying is so fundamentally essential. And I yield the floor back to you, sir. Please continue your thought.
On that note, it's, talking about how it's essential. It is, at the end of the day, right? It's like you're there for the music, but the experience of a metal show is something that everyone will talk about after the fact, because it's something that everyone will understand. Like, I could go to a Black Dahlia Murder show and geek out about how much I love the Black Dahlia Murder, but to, like, my friends, when I tell them, yeah, I went to go see Black Dahlia, like, they played all this stuff from like Nocturnal and Verminous and all these things, they're not going to get it because they're not fans of Black Dahlia. However, I can then tell them, oh yeah, I got elbowed in the back of the head and my neck got fucked up. They'll get that part. They go, okay, I want to go see like what a metal show is like. One of my best friends, him and I did the whole thing where I went to go see one of his favorite bands of all time, the indie rock band out here in Toronto called Always. That was a fun show. It's super chill. It's indie rock, right? Like, no one's screaming and jumping and kicking people. And then vice versa, him and I went to go see my favorite band of all time, which is Protest the Hero. And that's all, mosh pit. You're jumping around, you're dancing, you're screaming, things like that. And I told him, if you want to, understand the true experience of a mosh pit, or just like of what a metal show can be like, you just got to go to metal shows. And that's a big part of it, right? These bands that have all these crazy moments that go on in the music itself, awesome. For the live experience, it's awesome for the fans, because that's like, oh, that's our moment. That's our moment to just go nuts. You get to express yourself in the most fun way possible, of just jumping up and down and kicking people, not
Caveman
intentionally.
style.
Yeah. Caveman, yeah, like you just get to be a Neanderthal for all of like 5 minutes, right? And then as soon as that show's done, your Darwin's theory of evolution kicks in, and you're not a Neanderthal anymore.
Can I just say in a word, catharsis is the word I would throw in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean that's what the breakdown is. It's the moment of catharsis. Yeah.
I have no therapist. I have a circle pit that I see every week.
That sounds unhealthy.
I didn't say it was healthy. It's a coping mechanism.
It's a coping mechanism. Yeah.
I can't do that anymore. My neck's too not what it used to be.
Yeah.
I'm too old.
Yeah. But yeah, I think with this new stuff with Northlane, it's good to see that bands are still utilizing a good breakdown here and there. Because when you like not from a live perspective, but now from just like the listening perspective, you're listening to a song like this and it gets to that breakdown, you go, oh, this is a nice varied moment from everything else that's going on. It's the one thing I love about breakdowns is in most songs it happens and you're like, okay, this is something very different, and then it just goes back. It's not really like it's not intentionally a change in, okay, it is intentionally a change in direction, but it's a change in direction that then goes back to the norm, where you go, oh, that was a nice little, again, catharsis, but it was that nice moment of something, a change of pace, if you will. And even like, coming out of that breakdown, because it goes from the breakdown, there's that quiet moment in there, you sort of let everything sit, and then it's back into the chorus, and as it ends, and it's just simple, strong song structure, and that's the beauty of it. I love that bands are really focusing on norm of song structure again, because I feel like too many bands kind of deviate away and they start doing like all these things, which is cool. It works, but sometimes
I can't say much about that because I really like experimental song structures. But
yeah, I know.
I get that we have forms for a reason.
But
yeah,
that's the thing, is like my argument can be seen as hypocritical, because like early Protest the Hero did not have that at all. It's all experimental structure. So there's that. But I think to what my point is it's nice to see what bands are still able to do with the rules. It's something Tigran Hamasyan said, where well, I'm sure other people have said it, but this is like, I heard Tigran say this at a clinic. It's better to learn the rules and know what your boundaries are, and once you have that down, you can do, paraphrasing, you can do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, I mean that's what I always tell students who really want to get into the like, why do I have to learn basic music theory if I'm just going to break all these rules anyway? And it's because you need to know where the boundaries are before you can start abusing them.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
You can't bend the rules of a game if you don't know how to play the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else that stood out to us in this song? The main thing for me was that pre-chorus. I think that is masterfully crafted.
Oh yeah.
I think
one thing.
Oh, go ahead.
No.
No, I don't have that many more thoughts. For me, all I was going to say is that I really enjoyed how the song brought me back to coming home after high school, going into the basement and playing some Halo 2 on Xbox Live. Man, those are good days.
Yeah,
Halo 2, the main theme
Yeah.
done by Breaking Benjamin. There's the correlation.
that's true.
It's just that old nostalgic feeling, and that's
It
the
is.
exact takeaway I got from the song, and I loved it.
I think that's the beauty of it at the end of the day, is the fact that it's able to invoke the nostalgia of, those that came before them and really feel like it's a 2000s metalcore song again, because unfortunately no one does that anymore.
Yeah. Well, you know what's really funny is that we spent half an hour talking about this song and we haven't mentioned Ian Kenny once,
I know.
which it's interesting because it obviously it's very cool to have Carnival, like any member of Carnival doing anything. Because when was the last time they put something out? 2000. Oh, I guess they did something in 2018, but that was a while ago. But it's almost the vocals feel like they almost feel like they're like a synthesizer or something, like a pad on top of just like the really solid structure of the song, if that makes any sense.
It does make sense, but also to that, I do want to say that Ian Kenny's vocals fit so perfectly with everything that's going on that Northlane is playing that you can't say much because it complements it so well.
Yeah, it all feels super cohesive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I would say that it's not even that it's just an addition to the song. It melts. It seeps into the song, and
that's. I feel like that was the wrong way of putting it. It's not like it is. It's just you don't notice the vocals immediately because it feels like they've always been there. If that makes sense.
Exactly.
It feels like this is what this song's supposed to sound like. Obviously, it's not like cool, Ian Kenny, that's neat. Which is great. It's an awesome way to feature someone.
It's the
musical. It means they really wrote. It means they really wrote this song with him in mind.
It's the musical embodiment of, if you've done something right, people will not be sure you've done anything at all. It's just so perfectly. It doesn't overpower anything. It doesn't back away. It's exactly where it needs to be in the song. And it's just so mind bending. Like, it's so subtly integrated into the song, but it's so perfectly integrated into the song. It's just literally I know it's a musical composition and it was literally made for the song, but it's like his vocals were literally made for the song. It's like he was born to sing this song.
Yeah, pretty much. That's the thing, right? It's like it's that old not really a joke, but that old adage, if you will, sure, of you replace Ian Kenny with any other vocalist, and do you get the same kind of effect? Do you get the same kind of feeling? No, right? Like it's the vocalist does make a huge difference, and Ian Kenny fits so well with what's going on, So yeah, no, he's a great vocalist, man. Those Australians,
them Aussies,
they're way too good.
They know how to do a good rock and roll.
They do.
I would argue the fear of constantly being bitten by a spider when you put your shoes on in the morning, it adds a certain level of emotion to everything.
I don't think they're afraid at this point.
That's where all the screaming comes.
Yeah. No. I know they're afraid because of that episode of Bluey that they had to ban because it encouraged children to not be afraid of spiders. Yeah.
To be fair, if you have brown recluses as just like a fact of life in your country, you probably don't want to be teaching children that spiders are like safe to be around.
That's the point.
That's true. That is very, very true.
Like, welcome to my argument. I adore spiders. They're awesome. I don't want to touch a brown recluse.
I'll go on the record as being very arachnophobic, but that is just like my own thing. And we could talk about spiders, but I will not go near them. They're the devil's lawn chairs. I don't know.
The devil's lawn chairs.
Because of all the legs, and they're like maybe the devil's ottoman. I don't know.
We need that on a shirt, like immediately. It's just a spider with like a chair back.
Well, we found the first piece of Airborne Sealife merchandise.
This is not brought to you by drugs in the slightest.
What?
That one's for TikTok kids.
That is. Oh my god. Okay. Well, I don't know what to say other than how many I need to ask a question. This is just to keep track of everything. How many Aussies have we talked about on this show now?
Not enough.
Is this 3?
Not enough. Definitely.
Not enough, I know.
Who have we talked about?
Well, we did Nablaviscaris, and they're very Australian.
We passingly mentioned Parkway Drive.
Yeah. So we haven't talked about Parkway Drive, but
very much want to talk about Paul Wardingham.
Yeah.
At some point in the near future, who's another Aussie.
Where's Earthside's American, right?
Earthside's American.
Okay, good. Just making.
Yeah, no, no, we've not talked about the Omnific yet. We need to do them at some point.
That would be fun if we talk about the.
We need to talk about the whole Pliny crew at some point.
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of room for that in the future. Do we have any other thoughts about this? Because like, it's nice that it's a shorter song, but we've kind of covered all bases and talked about just the beauty of its nostalgia factor.
Well, we're sitting at a solid 45 minutes. I think
there you go.
Everything we need to say.
I think so.
This is a good rug pull moment.
Yeah, this is our little cool down after talking about lawn chairs.
Devil's long chairs.
Long chairs.
Gotta get that in there. That's the factor. That's the wow factor.
This episode really went from jeans to that.
Brought to you by mental illness.
Exactly. Well,
and sleep deprivation.
Yeah, I think we're good then. And if we are
we are Airborne Sealife. You can find us on the new Airborne Sealife YouTube channel.
Absolutely, and we also
as well as.
Oh, go on.
Oh, you.
No. Why don't you, Brendan, tell us where else you can find us?
Yes,
because we've been talking, and we now have the Airborne Sealife TikTok, and as of last night, the Instagram account. It has nothing on it right now, but we'll be fixing that periodically.
Absolutely. So I'm Manuel. You can find my stuff at H3 Alchemy in most places and under my name if you want to listen to my music. I am joined by Yusuf, who you can find at Yusuf Rashid. Yusuf and I are also in a death metal band called Necronomicon Ex Mortis. We are putting out new music most of the time. So go give us a listen. And I don't think Brendan has much to plug besides.
And Brendan's on the TikTok and the Instagram.
On the TikTok.
You can find him there.
Yeah. I've got a few things in the mental pipeline that I'll be working on, but I'll come to that later.
There you go.
So next week we may have something interesting lined up for you all, but we're not going to say anything about it just yet.
No.
Mysterious.
No, we won't.
Mystery. Suspense.
Ooh.
Mystery podcast. Ooh.
Mystery pod. Anyway, yeah, we're done here. We'll see you next week.
This is going off the rails.
See ya.